All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another month of Python across Alberta. I was supposed to put an announcement out there, but I realized it was already 10 past the hour, so I just hit the play button. It is recording. Perfect. Let me just share the slides here. So, for all those who are new, typically our meetups, we start off with quick intros of each of the meetups and a bit of news and articles, and then um, we go straight into the content. So again, because we're doing things virtually, this is a bit of a combination of three different Python meetups in Alberta. So shout outs to the YYC Data Society. They have a website as well as a meetup web page as well. PyYYC as well. They have a website, they have a meetup as well as a YouTube channel. Their YouTube archive actually goes back all the way to 2012. So they've got lots more content on their website, curated and are listed out very fairly well. And then myself, I represent EdmontonPy. We have our website there, the Twitter, the Slack. We're on the Dev Edmonton Society Slack. I'm not sure if most of you discovered us through there or not, but if you haven't, feel free to poke into our Slack channel. It's basically a good, I sort of see it as a collision of anyone who has to work with technology. You're going to see developers, designers, managers, all kind, students as well. Yeah, that Slack is a good time. And of course, we also have our YouTube videos on YouTube as well. And for us, I only was able to go back to June 2019 with our content, but yeah, another question I also get is where are the links to the slides? Don't worry, I will paste the link to the slides right after I am done talking through them. Although we're meeting virtually, I do want to still thank Startup Edmonton. They are the ones who offer their space for many years for all of our meetups. I believe they will be offering their new space fairly soon. So I'm excited to hear news about that as well. They did purchase the license for Remo, and last I checked, this thing is not cheap, but it is really good. So I just want to say thank you once again to Startup Edmonton for offering their space and offering to purchase licenses for Remo for all of our meetups to continue online. In terms of local jobs, I have this one is, I believe they're hiring in Calgary as well as, I believe, remote in Canada. Viewpoint Investment Partners, they're looking for um, machine learning developers as well as data scientists. They are an investment management firm. Um, and I think they see tech as giving them a bit of an edge, compared to other investment management firms that maybe haven't caught up with the times yet. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking to hire great people, you can also visit our opportunities channel at the Dev Edmonton Society Slack. Well, a lot of jobs these days are also remote. So Muckrack and CodeCov, I wanted to highlight them mostly because we do have people in Alberta who do work for each of these companies remotely. Muckrack, I know for sure. One of the former EdmontonPy organizers worked at Muckrack. And with CodeCov, I believe I think there's like one person in Alberta who works for CodeCov. But yeah, they're hiring for positions that also are looking for people with Python skills, amongst other skills. And there are also three websites that I like to share with people. One is a scraper that someone has created for who is hiring. So on Hacker News every month, there's like this who is hiring thread, a little hard to parse. So I really like that scraper tool. And of course, there's remotepython.com and remoteok.io. Lots of remote positions. So do take a look. All right, news and articles for the month. I'm myself really happy to always see like every month there's something happening with the Python language. It seems like they've I really enjoy just reading what's new. And with 3.11, although the stable version isn't out yet, there is the first beta. And one of the things that really caught my eye is that even though it's still in beta, it is roughly 10 to 25% faster than CPython 3.10. So if you're using CPython, I believe is, if you don't even know if you're running CPython, you probably are. And so, yeah, you're basically, by going to 3.11, once it's stable, going to be getting a faster, Python experience without changing the way that you write your Python code. Other new language features to look forward to, there's several, but two that I wanted to pick out were PEP 654, that has to do with exception groups. So, I being a polyglot, sometimes I like forget what languages have what features and which ones don't. But I believe PEP 654 is giving 3 Python the ability to write like one try and multiple excepts under, one logical code block. And then the other one that I really like seeing is PEP 675, using type hinting to prevent foot guns, like um, allowing user input into your SQL queries. That's a way to just allow anybody to drop your tables. Well, with the literal string type, we can try our best using type hinting and static analysis to prevent formatted strings from using potential like variables or input that could be sourced from a user. So that was pretty exciting to see as well. Django still has a soft spot in my heart. I know there's a lot of different, there's just so many different web frameworks. If I check the release notes for all of them, well, then again, I'd probably check Flask and Fast API. Maybe I'll do that next month. But Django still got a soft spot in my heart, and I check it. And this one's a pretty important one. If you're on Django 4, you probably want to go on 4.0.4. There's 2 SQL injection critical vulnerabilities that were fixed with 404. So, upgrade. And in terms of podcasts, I thought Talk Python 363 was pretty interesting because I myself am, someone who considers himself kind of a polyglot developer. Um, but and I will also, have to admit that I've done a little more C# than Python lately, as sad as that is to admit. But it would be, this podcast is interesting to be able to, if you're curious, what the differences and similarities across C# and Python are. Do give it a listen, and also consider becoming a polyglot programmer if you aren't already. All right, so tonight's talks, we have, for our first speaker, the topic will be on Python F-string formatting. So I guess kind of, segueing from literal strings coming soon to Python 3.11, well, let's learn more about F-string formatting from Carson. And then our second presentation will be on full stack development of machine learning in production. So at the moment, we're all kind of in this presentation mode. And what I would like to ask is that if you do have any questions, feel free to post them. Post your questions right in here. Or if you're really fancy, there's also a Q&A tab that you can also ask your question under. I will basically be, as the MC, just scanning through the chats and the Q&A tabs and just collecting them, and then we will try our best to answer them at the end of each presenter's talk. This way, our presenters can just flow through their presentation, and they can always come back to their content if there's a question that requires us to backtrack. Okay, awesome. And with that, I will allow Carson to enter the stage.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron, for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you all see it? Cool. I guess that's good. Yep. Well, excuse me. Thanks, Aaron, for the introduction. Carson and the Calgary Python meetup organizer. So tonight I will be talking about the Python F-string formatting. Traditionally, there are 3 ways to format a string in Python: the percentage formatting style, the string dot format style, and the F-string format style, which is preferred currently. So let's actually quickly go over one by one. The first one is percent, or you can call it modular formatting interpretation operator. Um, so this is the old-fashioned string formatting, and we can also add argument to it. So for example, here are a couple examples. If we set up the variables to be language and the number, and then we could cite them here basically using this kind of format. And if we print it, you can see this is nicely printed out. Now we can also do here, basically you can do this kind of like dictionary representation, and it has the same output. Now the disadvantage for this is you've probably seen this. It's not so easy to read if you have like multiple variables. Uh, so yeah, and you probably can see this a lot in a lot of scenarios because it's widely used. But then the string dot format style was introduced back in 2.6. Now you can still use an argument, but this one is more flexible than the previous one. For example, you can set up the variables on the go and you can represent them here. So it's a bit more easy to read. You can also do the formatting like this into a binary, and you can also do the scientific formatting. Well, similarly, if there are many parameters, this could get pretty lengthy. Now, let's go to the F string, the formatted string literals. This is new and improved way for the formatting. It was introduced in Python 3.6, and this one is evaluated at runtime. It's very flexible, short and simple, and it's the fastest among all three ways. So, for example, similarly, you can do these variable assignments, and then you can just put an F here in front of the string, and you can just use it. And here we go. It's printed nicely. And you can also do the math in the brackets, and it'll compute the result directly. And also, if you would like to do something fancy, you can put curly brackets inside curly brackets inside curly brackets, and then you can print out this kind of version. This might be useful for some sort of like ORM related query stuff. Now that we've briefly touched the surface of the formatting, let's dive deeper into the string formatting. The format specifications are used with the replacement field contained with the format string to define how individual values are presented. For example, this entire table represents the rules for formatting the strings. The important thing is here that we can use the format specs. It must follow specific specs for the string to format properly. And you can use additional optional arguments to format the string. I will show them later. So for example, let's set up some variables here that can be used later in the code. The first one, as I mentioned, let's take a look together, is a format spec. Let's look at the first one, the fill, align, and sign. So basically the fill is that you can fill with a string with something you specified. So here, if you put a 10, it means fill the string with 10 spaces. So this is actually 10 space. I put these two to make sure that these are clearly indicated so that you can see the filled in space. Now, if we put in the fill in the line, here is something goes really interesting. You can align with different directions. Now, actually, for all these directions, you can always refer back to this align operator. So let's take a look. You can right justify, you can left justify, and you can center justify, just like how you format the text. And you can also put paddings, no paddings with paddings, and you can combine them together, and you can put like different size. So with everything combined, when you execute the cell, you can see that these are the result from the alignment and the fill. Like basically for this one, you can fill it and you can align it. So the format would be something like this. If you would like to, do things like that, there's a specific order that you have to follow, which is indicated here. So when I first read the Python documentation on this part, I wasn't so sure about it until I manually played with it, and I discovered this is the format you have to follow. And for this format and order, you can put in these optional parameters. Now let's look at the second one, Z size. The subcomponents, these causes this option causes an alternate form that can be used for conversion, and the alternate form is defined differently for like different types, and there are certain restrictions, such as it's only valid for integers, float, and complex types. So for example, this one, you can do different forms such as these. Uh, the notebook will be posted later, so don't worry. You can always play with it. The next one is the zero subcomponent. If the output is smaller than the indicated field width, and if you specify the digit 0 in this format spec, the values will be padded on the left with zeros instead of ASCII space characters. So, for example, it all looks like this. So this has particular use, in some sort of like calculation format or table or finance. We may want to fill with zeros. This is another case for that. Um, Next one is the width subcomponent. So this width defines the width of the string. Filled with empty spaces, nothing specified for fill. For example, this we can see that you can fill with the word with like 20. So take the entire 20. Well, I hate to say space because we're filling with space, but you can take the entire room with filling spaces. And then if your width is too small, then it just gets ignored, such as this. I probably should put some vertical lines here to indicate. Anyway, the next one is, again, still it is the format spec. Let's look at the grouping option and position and type. So these options, like you can put in underscore or comma, and these are really helpful in the digit format, especially if you want to format numbers or like binary codes or hex codes, things like that. And the positions is definitely very helpful for the float, decimal numbers. You can put it like different. You can set up the presentation for different decimal numbers, and here we go. So yeah, something fun. Everyone knows a pi, and we even have the pi day. What does it look like after the digit, after the floating point for 100 digits? Well, there we go. It's easily shown here. Lastly, let's look at the type subcomponent. So these are the types that we can specify the string to be shown. I put a link here for more details because there are lots. So for these different types, as you can see here, I use type F here. It means it's float, and sometimes those are default, so you don't have to put there. I mentioned briefly something here. So I strongly recommend to take a look at these different types for various use case. Now, put all of them together. Let's actually look at two examples. The first one is a very simple example. It's a class string representation. This kind of thing can be used, anywhere from class representation or like ORM or model files, things like that. So how does this work? When you initialize a class, you can give it some sort of variables, and there are two things. You can initiate the string, or you can initiate the REPR. So when you do that, you can do this. when you initialize a class and when you print the class directly, it'll go with this one, which is a string representation. By default, the f string will use this, but you can also use this REPR, and you can just give it an actual argument of this one. So if you do that, you can see it. It's pretty simple one, but it's actually widely used. Like you can also do things like help for a certain class or method that you can compose some sort of like customer message, and uh, it can be formatted very nice and easily. The second one, however, is the one that I actually wanted to talk about. So the motivation for write this tutorial was that I was doing a pet project during Christmas time, and I have to format some sort of table. And then I was like, the app formula looks really cool. I need to look deeper into that, and here we go. So let's actually take a look at this example. This is a fruit, and with the unit price and the price percentage in the bucket. Apparently, these all are all made up numbers. And let's take a look. So when we print out this one, which is a dictionary in the table format, we could print out the header, which is specified here as a list. And then we add some paddings, we add some adjustment. We can print it in one line, right? The next one is some divider, and we iterate through all the items inside this dictionary. We format the price. And what if the line goes too long? Here we go. We can easily separate them with this kind of format, multiple lines. And then, ta-da, we have this, which is nicely formatted table that can be used anywhere. We can fill in with dots. These are aligned properly, and the percentage are controlled by this, I think. Yeah. And the precision was controlled by this, and the precision for the unit price was controlled by this. And you can separate it by the comma, which makes this big number look pretty nice. And this the dollar value is very well represented. So I've probably gone it a little bit too fast, I guess. But here are some references, and again, the notebook and recording will be posted later. You're feel free to just get the notebook and play around with it. And yeah, this is the end of the presentation. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me.
So I did actually have one question.
Right.
Yeah, so I always am interested in how to escape the formatting character. So
Right.
you had an example of doing the double curly bracket. I'm just wondering
Right.
if backslash also works, because I've seen backslash used in other languages, but I'm curious.
Right. Yeah, backslash can work.
Does it?
Yeah, it can. You just have to follow like specific orders because where was that? Here. You can put in like backslashes, but then this curly brackets they cancel each other, right? So
Yeah.
with the introduction of the backslash, it just gets a little bit weird. I mean, it can work. It's just I didn't put it here. Yeah.
I think it's because my experience has just been using backslashes, and it's just
Yeah.
new to
No.
me to see
Yep.
double curly. But
Yep.
because it's new, I'm like a little hesitant to like change my ways, so to speak. But no, I think
No, it's good. Yeah.
this is this also saves me from having to move my finger to another character on the keyboard. That's how lazy I am when it comes to typing. So yeah, you can just keep hammering at the curly bracket, and depending on your IDE, it will even auto append the closing one for you. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
awesome. Okay, and then you said that you'll be sharing the links to this notebook.
Yep. In fact,
Awesome.
I'll share it right now.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, let me see. I'm just going to do I'm just gonna just check out the URL here. Usually our talks go a little longer. Nothing wrong with a short but sweet talk either. I actually feel like we need more of these, but great. Yeah, this link did work for me. Excellent.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Carson.
Thank
If
you.
everyone, could give him a virtual round of applause here. Thank you so much once again. And if I could ask, actually, we do have another question. We actually do have a question from Hamid. Sorry if I pronounced people's names wrong. But the question is it possible to use spaces as the thousands separator, as is required in French?
It actually you can. So let me
I wonder,
quickly share.
would it be something we could see a
screen
demo of?
again. Yeah, I think we can do that. So where was that? That was in the part of the separation.
Yeah, also separations. Yeah.
This. So you would like to use what space? A southern separator. I think it's possible. I didn't run this. For now, how do I run all? This may take a little bit time. Let's see. Okay, so if I add a cell here, let's see if this works. Nope, it doesn't. What about this? It's probably not going to work. Nope. So use space as southern separator. Interesting. I guess you cannot.
Do we have to wrap it in Do we have to wrap a space character in single quotes? That's my hacky, super hacky
probably.
suggestion.
I was actually thinking about that, but then it's on the right side of that, so it's a little bit tricky. I was initially thinking about the escape, but let's actually try this. Why not? Nope, it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that.
Yeah. I didn't.
So
Yeah. I figured.
May not be. I think it's good exercise for a quick Stack Overflow search.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, that was internationalization that gets developers into trouble. So Hamid, that was a really great question. Yeah, so Sean is suggesting that we enclose the space character in double quotes.
I'm little.
Yeah, I'm not sure either because
suspicious,
you're saying that the right hand side has special input. It doesn't just accept arbitrary.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You can try that. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, it's on the right side of the formatter. So, like, if we actually look back into the
format spec
here, the format spec, there are certain requirements for the right side that you can't just like put in anything there. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, there's more research to be done, I suppose. But okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, Carson.
Thank you.
Thank you for actually. This is a super useful talk for me personally because I haven't written Python in a while. But one thing I really like is the f-string formatting. I think they borrowed that from, some other languages, and really happy to see.
It's a little late in Python, but
a little late, but better late than never. So, and yeah, we're going to be soon on 3.11. So yeah, since it's been out since 3.6, definitely time to learn it if you haven't already, because I believe, as you alluded to in the presentation, that it is now the fastest in terms of raw performance, like string formatting approach. The other two ways, I believe they just don't optimize anymore because don't use the old syntax is what they're trying to recommend the community do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. All right, everybody, give Carson another virtual round of applause. Thank you once again, Carson.
Cool.
It was nice nice to get a good refresher and improve my skills. That table is amazing. Like ASCII art is awesome. So like those debug logs are just about to get even better. Um, okay, thanks again. And I will invite Hadi onto the stage if he is ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm just trying to see. Okay, now it's good. So it's a pleasure to be among you guys, and I'm going to present two works. One is for running a web application for machine learning, and also the other project is going to be about the backend, which is going to run a training model on the backend on a Google Cloud. So I know it might be some sort of frustrating for some of you guys. You are like some of you are like pro developers, so just bear me with that. And also, it might be interesting to see some of the um, machine learning parts. So without further ado, I'm just gonna present. So you can see my screen, I believe. So first, I'm gonna go through the web application. So for those of you who are interested in using a presentation in Jupyter, you can pip install Rise, and it will allow you to share inside the Jupyter notebook. Just out of curiosity, can you all see my slides as well? Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so let's assume that we are working on a project, and in this project we want to design a very simple user interface web application to use an ML model. So it's going to be the front development using Streamlit. So Streamlit is kind of a very convenient way of like designing application, and it has been there like I guess for it's been a new kind of Python library, which is more straightforward for like simple integration and developing like parts for the web applications and so on. And so here I'm going through creating a machine learning model from scratch and then also designing the web application. So for the topic and for the data set we're trying to solve, we're trying to estimate the salary of a software developer based on the data set provided by Stack Overflow. And you can also have access to this data set online. It's on the Stack Overflow website. So it essentially has a lot of features. Like it's a questionnaire that is widely available, so every software developer can basically submit their questionnaires here, and then it basically. So we're going to go through the code, and you can see what we have there here. Import required. So here the and then we go through what features we have in this data set. So like the employment, the country, whether in the States or in the UK, their age, like how long they have been a developer, and so on. So we have pretty good amount of, we have 4 like questions or like answers from the developers. So we want to work with them, but we need to clean this data. So here is the name of all these features. We might just gonna work on a few of them because the majority of them are just sent for us for now. So we're gonna focus on the country, the education level, the number of years I've been professionally working as a developer, their employment type, as well as like their salary. So converted yearly is changed to salary here, and here is the code. So we're gonna clean the data set again. We're gonna remove some of the data that are not a number. So we're gonna clean the data. Again, we still have some not a number in other features as well. So we're gonna clean them. We're gonna clean them as well. But before that, I want to show you how we can use pandas to learn the type of the columns or the type of the features that we're working on. So country is an object, so essentially it's a string. Education level is also a string, and number of years is a string, which we were expecting to be an integer at least, but it's a string. So we need to, because we're trying to train a model, and the model works on numbers, not. So first, as I mentioned, we clean the data over there. We only take into account time. So we look at the countries. So when we look at the countries, we see that we have 66 countries, like submission from 6 countries. So it's majority of the countries are just like one state is like 9,000. If we want to train our model, the model is not effective when it comes to like, very sparse data. So we need to either work around that. So what we do, we consider a cutoff here, and we define them as the other, like whatever comes at the bottom here, like they're 1, 2, 3, whatever. Then based on the cutoff, we just like flag them as the other. Then we have this nice representation of the countries. So we have from the United States, we have also other, India, and all the way down. So some of the names are too long, so we're going to change the names. And we're going to look at how like this distribution looks like based on the salary and country. So as you can see, for some countries or for some locations, we have many outliers. So for example, someone from a certain country inputted, I don't know, $30 million per year as a developer. So these are like some outliers. We need to remove them. So we put a policy and we make it more rational. We still have some outliers, but it still does job for us. So when we looked at the number of years, so we noticed that the number of years object, so we need to change that. So as you can see here, some of the objects is like less than a year or more than 50 years. So someone has been working as a developer for 50 years. I don't know how it's possible, but yeah, it's a question here. So we have outliers. We need to take that into account. So for those who have put like more than 50 years, we're just gonna change it to 50. And so, yeah, until here, we kind of like clean the data, we worked around it, we massage data, we remove all the unnecessary things. And now we want to like implement our machine learning model. So here, I use a decision tree regression model, which is very nice and gives us some sort of like prediction that we want. So to see what error we have, so we get so if we want to do a prediction, we get this error, like developer, which is very high. But just for demonstration here, it just doesn't really matter. We also compare that with another regression model, which is a random forest, and we get a 28,000 error. So previously we had 28,226. For this one, 28,312. So it's just roughly the same, or very, very close. But we do not give up, so we use the grid search approach. So grid search essentially goes through all the combinations of like the max depth and also the parameters and chooses the best one with the minimum error. But we still get a high value. So looks like ensemble modeling is not very good. And then what we do, we have a test. We want to test the model. So let's say I have an array of the responses. Someone in USA with a master's degree and 15 years of professional working, and we can just do the analysis and we can get some values here. So this is essentially what we want to get when we run an application over the web. So how do we run the application over the web? So we used Streamlit, as I mentioned. So we import Streamlit, and for here, let's consider that we want to have only 2 pages on our web application. One is where we can have the prediction. The other one is to explore the data. So then we would have the Streamlit sidebar to just basically have a select box. So essentially, when you call the library, then you can call a sidebar. So that comes your web browser, and then you can add a select box or other like a toolbar or whatever you need. And you have a tuple, which is either to predict or to explore, and the title of the tuple, which is a string here. And then if based on the selection, then it will just go to this function or this function, which are imported from these 2 Python files. So for example, for the predict page, we just did the same thing there. So we essentially saved our model here with the pickle. So pickle is a very nice library to save file. So we can save our machine learning model in a file, and then we can call it in other like in other locations or in other places. So here we load the model and we load the data, as well as we load the training model, which is our regressor. And here we define a function which shows the prediction. So this essentially chooses from certain countries and certain education levels. And based on that, we define a select box, the education, and we also have a slider. So a slider goes from 0 to 50 years with the steps of 3. And yeah, so it's just, we have a button. So Streamlit.button will generate a button on the page. One clicks on the button, it will become true. For us. And then it will add a subheader to just show the estimated salary of that query. So so if I want to run, then if I want to run this, I already run it before. I will just see if I can stop this. I don't know. We'll just run a new. So if I say Streamlit run app Py, and I'm making sure that I'm in my virtual environment, I will run this and it will go on my local host. So yeah, that's the sidebar. And then for the sidebar, we had a select box, predict or explore. So if I choose explore, it will show like a brief history of like this data set. For example, number of developers from the United States, 33%, and the distribution over all the other countries shown here. The mean of the salary in each country, as well as like the mean of the salary based on experience. So as you have more experience, you will get paid higher. And if you go to the prediction, as an example, we had the USA. Let's say we have a master's degree with 15 years of experience, then you get that number we already seen here. And essentially, it's just like running on a local host, but it's possible to just run it on your I don't know, your cloud or your web application. So this is a first part. I just heard a message on Slack. I'm not sure if this. Okay. So then this is the first part, and then in the second part, we're going to run a machine learning model on the cloud. So I'm just going to close these because they are not necessary for now. Yeah. Okay. So here, I'll go through this one again. Slideshow. We want to deploy another machine learning model on Google Cloud Run. So some of you might use AWS, some of you might use other web services, but here I would just show a demonstration of like how you build the model, the machine learning model, and then put it on a Google Cloud, and then trying to query training model on the cloud, and then getting some results back in. So first, again, we're going to build the app and also the model, and then we're going to set up the Google Cloud on the Google Cloud platform. And also we'll initialize Google Cloud SDK, and also because we want to run this and Dockerize the machine learning model, we need a Docker file, the requirements, and also we want to have a Docker ignore to just like avoid certain files to be Dockerized and to be on the image container, and then eventually we're going to build up. So we want to build a neural networks, and also the app is used using Flask. So it's going to essentially be a classification problem to detect handwritten digits. We're going to use the famous MNIST dataset, and we're going to run this app on the app, and then we're going to send a request to the app to see what prediction we get. So this request is going to be sent to the Google Cloud. As usual, we're going to import. So the first two lines is just like basically we don't want to have many messages coming up, so it's just like to limit the messages, and we're going to use a TensorFlow, and also from the Flask we're going to use a Flask and request, and also we want to JSONify the messages or the request. Then so we load the data. We split the data into a training and test, and we want to normalize the data to be between 0 and 1. So, and then here is the images we have on the file. So these are the images from our training set. So you see like we have 5, 4, 9, etc. Then we're going to build our model. So it's a neural network. So in neural networks, we have a sequence of layers, and so if you go back, you see that each data is of the size of 28 by 28. So we have a 28 by 28 pixel data set. So each picture is 28 by 28. So we need the input layer of 28 by 28 size. And then we have series of layers. So the second is the 128 layer with the size of 128 neurons with the ReLU activation. And then we have the output to be either 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9. Then these are some parameters and performance metrics. Then we fit with our training, and then we save the model. And as you can see, our saved model, we just want to evaluate whether the saved model actually works well. So here you can see that the saved model has the exact accuracy and loss as like the actual model. So we can essentially work around with that saved model. And these are some functions. And here you can see we have our Flask application. So we are trying to read from the file and then trying to transform the NumPy array into a tensor so that we can predict this. And this is exactly what we need to see in the output. So this is going to be something that will essentially be shown in on the Google Cloud. So right now we are done with the app. So now we're going to set up the Google platform. If you haven't done so, it's very straightforward. You just Cloud platform, go to Google Cloud. My internet is a little bit slow. And then you go to console. So here you can just create a new project. And I already made a project here. So if you write the name of the project and then a unified, so you have your project. So for example, for mine, it's called MNIS project. So I have that, and then if I go to that, I have some information about that. So then I need to add two APIs to my project. So I would just go to APIs services and then enable API and services. Then here I add the necessary APIs I need. So I need build, a cloud build API. So yeah, I click on it, and I already added this before. But if you haven't enabled this, then you can just enable here. Then I also need, so I need a build API because I want to build my Docker on the cloud, as well as I need to run. So I need a cloud run, and I already have this enabled, so which is good. So we're done with this part. So yeah, we created a project, and also we set up our Google Cloud. The next thing we need to have is to install Google Cloud SDK. So again, Google Cloud SDK, and then you link here. So these are some instructions for different operating systems. So for example, for Windows, it has an installer. I'm more interested in running in the terminal, so I would recommend if you're using Linux, just go and follow the Linux instructions. So once you install that, then you can basically access your Google Cloud by calling gcloud init. So I already have logged in, so it knows, it recognizes my account. So my account is basically my email, and also is showing that there is a project ongoing. We have that running on one of my pages, I think. Yeah, so if you see here, previously I ran this, and it can be through this URL. We set up the SDK, and then the next thing we need to do is to create a Docker file. So we go to our our directory. So we create a Docker file and a requirement .ignore file. I don't know why I cannot see it here. So if I go to the Docker file, there are some instructions we need to have in a Docker file. So for example, I use a Python 3.9 and also some other instructions that we need here. And also it essentially will run this on a GUnit core instead of Flask. And also the name of like the application or the file that it will run, its main, and in the main it will run an application, which is our Flask. So that's also so that's our Docker file, and then we need a requirement.txt. So the requirements will contain all the necessary dependencies we need in this application. So these here are all the libraries we need to install. Yeah, and then for Docker ignore, I don't know why I cannot see the Docker file here. Maybe I can see it over here. Oh, sorry. No. So yeah, I don't know. It might be. So I pushed into my GitHub site. It might be like the Git didn't maybe ignore that file. But yeah. So then, with that, then we can build on the cloud. So what we can do is we go through the terminal and we type in gcloud build submit tag ecr.io. So here I'm just gonna put the name of the project, like the name of the project on the Google file, which is mnist project 349616, which is here. And then I would call the index. So essentially a function in my app. And yeah, so yeah, if I run this, then it will take a while to mount my application or my like this essentially this application on the Google Cloud. And again, since I already have done this, so it was just like saying like it's already mounted. And then once I've built my application, then I can run deploy image DCR mist project 349616 and index, and platform managed. So gcloud run deploy image. So it says like what you want to name your service. I would say MS project. And it asks which data center or which center you want to, which region you want to choose. So I would say the closest one is US Central. If you want authenticated locations, that's fine. And it will deploy our app on the cloud, and it will generate this URL, so we can access this the app using this URL. So I'm going to copy and paste it in where I need to ask for a query. So here I've imported a request, and I will get an argument from the input, and I will send a request to this URL, which is essentially our, so right now our machine learning model is on a cloud, and we can run this by sending a request to this and sending this file. So we have this file, and then, yeah, here I use the F string, yeah. And we're gonna read the binary, and then we'll get a response from this request, and then we're gonna print it as a JSON. So what we're expecting is to get a prediction based on that number. So it's already running on there, and what I can do, I will just open another terminal. I would go to my I personally don't like Windows because I have to now on the cloud. Yes. So so here I have a number of so I drew some numbers by hand. So 8 is something I wrote with my hand in a paint. 4, sorry, nothing. 6, 3. So these are some numbers I just made by hand. Now through this request, so through this request file, I will send that picture to the cloud, and then I will see what response I will get back. So here I would say Python send request read. So I'm sending this picture, like this 3 right there. So I'm sending this on to the cloud and see what the results I will get. Hopefully it will. So it will send the file to the cloud and to get a response back. So it might kind of take a while. Yeah, so we got the prediction of 3. So I'm just going to use another one. The file is like a thing. So essentially, this file might be of a higher pixel, but then in the application, I have reduced the size of the file. So some of the files might be of higher sizes, and some might be on the lower sizes. But yeah, for example, 6 is also like bigger sizes, so it might kind of take a while. So we got a prediction 6, and lastly it's yeah, 8. So yeah, so we were able to made a neural network, train a neural network model based on some data, and then build the application using Flask, and building the neural network model in a file, and then building an application and Dockerize our application and save it on our Google Cloud. And then if you go to your Google Cloud and then your project, you can also see some summary of like what's going on. If you go to Cloud Run, you can see that, for example, the MS project is already running. So the last deployed was like 5 minutes ago. I think that's it. If you have any questions or yeah, so this is kind of like how we can have a model. We can have an application on a web, as well as we can also have a machine learning model on the backend on the cloud. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, everyone, let's just give Hadi a virtual round of applause here. So I noticed a lot of times, like so it's been pretty awesome. Basically, last year there were quite a few machine learning talks, but not a lot like going into sort of the practicality of it. So Hadi, if you don't mind just kind of sticking in here, I, as organizer, always have to have questions in my head just in case for these situations. So my question, first of all, to you, Hadi, is um, I actually learned about Streamlit thanks to this talk, and I am now wondering because Streamlit to me is fairly new. I've never heard of this, but now that I have, I'm kind of like, wow, to get a visualization up, I don't even really have to spend much time in the front end anymore. Like it's
Yeah,
just
so it's pretty straightforward. You just like need to call the library and then like just put whatever you want to just put on like your application or web interface, which is very nice. Like even if you go to like the main source of the website, so you can have plenty of options, or you can have, so for example, I was just trying to have like a drawable canvas so that I can just draw and then it will predict.
yeah. Yeah, I just thought it was really interesting because you were able to demonstrate a user interface in not a lot of time. And I guess, this is quite the intersection of the sense that like data science has always been a little tougher, like to surface on the web. And now
Yeah.
here's Streamlit, which just sort of fits really nicely. And so, as I'm going through here, like you're saying how you can even view the source code of people's stuff. Like I don't even know what this is, but I can. Oh, this is Streamlit's own example. Well, anyways, but yeah, this is quite
So yeah, it can go through like their application, as well as you can essentially see the source code, which is very like straightforward to.
It is.
I mean, for me, without that much pro experience in dev or
like web development and stuff.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, and that was kind of like the motivation that I wanted to like give this kind of talk for our society, because I know like some of the people who are like machine learning experts, like they put this on their website or somewhere that they can showcase their model.
A lot of times we get Python. Yeah, we get notebooks, but sometimes even the notebooks can be really big and hard to share. And so yeah, something like Streamlit works really well. And I guess like a sort of an add-on question. When would you use something like in your, let's say in your line of work, for example, when would you use something like Streamlit, and when would you go to something like Google Cloud Platform and deploying?
Right. Oh, well, that's a good question.
Right. I guess like Streamlit is very like effective if you want to just like have a project
just like going on in a few days rather than having like a very back end. So I would say like for me as like a student, or attending hackathon or just representing showcasing my model, then I guess this is a very nice and way to deploy. But of course it's not. I don't know. Like I'm also like kind of like approaching to this Streamlit.
Mm-hmm.
How secure it is to work with that, or how
Mhm.
like how much how further you can go through like
Right.
building the app. But I guess it's just like drawing attention on its own.
Mhm.
Speaking of the backend on the Google Cloud, so it's more of like a me as a graduate student, if I want to apply for a job, then they ask like, "Are you familiar with like AWS, or like have you done any projects, running an end-to-end machine?" I'm like, just give me like what you're talking about,
That's true.
because
yeah.
most of the time, like
just like know how to run
a data set on their machine, their own server, but in many cases, like companies, one who's already like expert in working with like interacting with AWS or cloud. So
Right.
that was kind of like
yeah. So being
touch base on that as well.
awesome. Yeah. No. That was like you couldn't have answered that better. Because yeah, I think for a lot of our talks, they love and not that it's bad, of course, but the gap that we were having is the sort of, well, now what, like how do I get it off of my machine and working on something else? It has been a huge gap in most of the talks, and so I'm really glad that you've been able to give a quick overview. Obviously there were so many technologies. It's amazing as I'm looking at each one. You're talking about Flask, you're talking about NumPy, you're talking about Pillow, you're talking about each one you can become an expert in. But I like I consider you much more of an expert on those libraries than I am. But even yourself, I'm sure you are aware that there can be even more to learn. But that being said, with I guess I'm curious now, like I guess my next question would be like, how did you learn all this? But also you were able to learn enough, combine it, and then deploy it. So yeah, I'd be curious to see like kind of, what was the learning curve like? What was the timeline? Because just like you said, a lot of your colleagues, they don't necessarily go to this next stage. So I'm always curious like how long it took you and how did you learn?
so it's just like
I went through like some hiring questions and like asking about my, and I was like, okay, like I think this is something necessary that I need to work on. So then I started searching about that, like how can I do that, and then I learned about like running on the cloud and using like these resources. Of course, this is I mean I have to pay for that, but when it comes to like trials, so it's fine. Like I can do some trials, and then that's something that I can learn, and it's completely free for now. But if I want to like run a real project, then I have to pay for the services like
Right.
I'm using from the Google. And then in terms of the libraries and those kind of like functions, yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of like for developers, kind of questions of you have to be expert in those libraries, or you have to even commit to it, or raise an issue, or
No.
but
Like even I don't, but okay. I just use the libraries.
Yeah, so like I was feeling like I need to like, so for certain applications I realized, like for example Pillow is very nice, like library. I can work with images, or other application, like other libraries. So essentially when it comes to like which, like how they can suit my work well, and similar to Streamlit, like previously I was trying to work this around with Flask, but then I realized Streamlit is here. So then I thought, okay, I'm just wasting my time because I know that I have a community of Flask Pro here, so they're going to be like, tired of like me and the app on using Flask. But then I realized Streamlit is a good alternative. So I'm glad that it was new to you as. I hope that the other participants also enjoyed using that. But I highly recommend, like, even though it's not like super rocket science kind of like library, but it's really fun.
It's those kinds of libraries that do one thing and do one thing really well, and it's those libraries that I typically bring me back and like make me want to continue like learning more about Python, because it's they solve the problems so well. And what I'm really glad about seeing here tonight is that there's this super easy way, Streamlit, and then here's deploying to production. But even that, because of stuff like Docker, and I believe your requirements file was only 6 libraries, like it's getting a lot easier now, and it's no longer the days where you even need like a server admin or someone with those professional skills necessarily. Obviously good to have around, but even then, like while I would consider more on the data science side, it's not impossible to also dabble and get your feet wet into a little bit of that web deployment, because sharing that information is so useful. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Hadi. I don't
No,
think I saw any
I'm
other
really glad.
questions.
Yeah, I'm really glad I had this opportunity to be here. I usually attended the in-person EdmontonPy sessions, but then since it was the pandemic, I was kind of like far away from these sessions.
Right.
I was able to join. Hopefully, I
Well,
will have
awesome.
for sure.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we're going to end this first talk for yourself here. So thank you once again, and virtual applauses for yourself, Hadi. And I will now conclude our meetup with. Oh, come on. I cannot click share screen anymore. What is this feature? There it is. It's a Z index bug. That's fun. If anyone knows what that is. Okay. Basically, I only have one more slide. Next meetup is TBD. So we try to meet every second Tuesday of every month, but the way that you'd be able to actually really know is if you have joined us in the Meetup EdmontonPy channel on Dev Edmonton Slack. I always try to at least a week before we meet, post a announcement, letting everyone know what to expect, if there's going to be a meetup, and what to expect from that meetup. As always, we're looking for presenters. You don't have to be ready to present in June. I don't know why I couldn't figure out what was the next month, but anyways, if you have an idea, even if you're afraid of presenting, or just unsure of what goes into a presentation, message either myself, Aaron.Young, or Abram, another organizer. You'll find us on Slack. It's the same Slack there. And that's right, I was supposed to share the slides, so I will do that. Oh, I realized I can't actually grab the link for these slides while I'm presenting them. But anyways, I will share these slides right after we're out of this presentation mode. But if I don't see you at the tables for the rest of tonight, then I'd just like to wish you good night. And thank you for joining us for another Python Across Alberta meetup. And I'll see you when we get our next meetup. Thanks, everybody.